So this isn't a rant, it's a response, and it needs to be said because silence is exactly what keeps the broken system running. And if you think that your rates are going to the basics like water and roads and electricity and safety, you need to think again, because what you're actually paying for is a political game that you were never invited to. So what happened at the meeting was more than just political theatre. It was a symptom of a much deeper sickness. And I've dedicated a great deal of time in the last 48 hours to working on a statement, crafting a statement that might make some sense to people and give some context to the proceedings, things that happened the other night. For those people that are genuinely interested. But I have reached a point where I've reached a conclusion where I know it's not actually possible, because unless you've been involved in it all along and you can understand the context, it's a waste of time. And realistically, I don't think that a lot of people have got a lot of time to waste on this stuff. And I'm not sure that it serves a great deal of purpose, actually. I'm not sure what we can change with it. So instead, I'll offer you my opinion. And my opinion is based on direct involvement and personal experience. It's not based on assumptions and innuendo. It's based on fact, and fact that I can attest to because of my involvement in these things. So the provision of municipal services should be apolitical. It is not. Simply it is not. The political players and all of the political players involved have as their primary focus the retention of financial control. And they play a game with each other at the direct expense of people that are funding their existence. And they're well practiced at it. They are very adept at using various bylaws and statutes and the manipulation of authority to maintain the illusion of control. And the interaction of the ward councillor at the community meeting a few days ago was just another symptom. It was an example of intentional political distraction. Now, far be it from me to question her personal intent, but I think anyone that witnessed that display, that behaviour, can quite plainly see that the person needs some help in some manner. Not suggesting anything, but help would be useful. And I even have a degree of empathy for her. The obvious confusion in her mind about the system and what she believes it to be, and her part in it, there's obviously some confusion there. So I have some empathy for that. You know, you can, with good intention, you can end up fooling yourself, and that's not good. Anyway, but what I wanted to talk about was that the allegations that were leveled against me, and by association other members of the community, were irresponsible in my estimation, in the extreme. And her obvious inability to deal with the issue only compounds the animosity that's felt towards her by the community. And it also highlights how comfortable she is to manipulate a situation through her assumed authority over other people. over community members. And this assumption of authority over a person is ridiculous. This assumption of authority over a community is ridiculous. She was elected to that position to do a job and doesn't seem to be doing that job. Anyway, in her mind it's very clear and it's very real. So, yeah. Anyway, I expect that there will be another attempt at personal retribution against me after this, probably disguised as some bylaw transgression or similar, and it won't only be towards me, it'll be towards other members of the community that likely have refused to play the game, and that's concerning, and I expect that. And I should offer this: I also expect of her employers that they should see to it that that does not happen. It would be very unfortunate if something like that were to happen. Now, what I have no empathy for is the political party or political parties that have engineered the situation in the first place. So let's consider a couple of facts, some opinion of mine, and why I might be qualified to speak about this stuff. I've lived in the area for 35 years, and for at least 20 of those I've been extensively involved in community development. I think I understand better than most what it takes to make the place tick. I think I understand. I think I've got a fairly good grasp on what the community is about and how it runs. And I believe that I've got a strong working relationship, personal, many personal relationships, but strong relationships with the people that know me in the community, and those relationships are based on trust. And so I feel the need to say what I'm saying now, because I feel it's necessary to step in and say things where people are perhaps not aware of some of the context and certainly what's being done in the background. And if you understand the reciprocal nature of relationships, you'll grasp that. So I think the community, the majority of the community, is not actually interested in infrastructure and the way it's managed. And basically what they want is that when you open a tap, the water comes out. When you switch on a light, when you push the switch, the light shines. When you drive down the road, you don't hit a pothole. When you stop at a stop street, you don't get hijacked. You know, basic things that I don't think are unreasonable to expect, because you're paying for these things. You're paying rates and taxes. But I see that politicians take advantage of this, and the primary reason for that is because they want to control what's coming into the municipality at this level, of course. But it's a system of control, and it's a desire of controlling the system. But they've complicated it to the point where the average person is essentially paying for the privilege of survival. And I think that that's morally reprehensible. It's very clever, but let's face it, by most acceptable standards, it's morally questionable, highly so. And here's the thing. Municipal service delivery is not actually complicated. You know, basic good business practices will make it work. But the political control seems to continually prevent that. The culture of greed that has evolved in the municipal structures proves that point. And, you know, in the last 5 or so years, I've had, maybe a little bit less, but in the last 5 years, I've had many conversations, serious, what I would consider to be serious conversations with representatives of various political parties, multiple political parties. And their response, almost without exception, has followed the same pattern, and that is avoidance. And if you can't avoid it, lie about it, and then retreat into plausible deniability. It's obviously a tactic that works. One of the reasons it works is because nobody speaks out against it. I think the meeting the other night was a perfect example of exactly that. That when offered the opportunity to deal with the accusations that were made in December against me and against other people by association, they chose complete avoidance. And to the point where I was told it was inferred that I was being completely unreasonable. Now that doesn't show a willingness to actually fix the mistake. That doesn't show a willingness to rectify the situation. Rather, it shows a determination to retain control at just about any cost. So I think you will need to decide where we go from here. In my mind, the system needs a complete overhaul. You cannot fix the thing by the same means with which it has been broken. So the system itself is the problem. The political antics, the ward councillor, all of that stuff, that's a symptom of the broken system. And I don't believe that politically it's going to get anywhere. It's not going to get fixed by pursuing it in the same way. So we need to insulate ourselves from this somehow and try and fix it in a different way, or suffer the consequences. And I think if you look carefully, you can see the consequences already. If you can't see the consequences of the current behavior, then then maybe you've already insulated yourself from it already, which great, okay. But there's a number of us that haven't, and we have to carry on. The consequences are dire if they're not dealt with, if the behavior is not dealt with. So if you have any thoughts on this, let me know. I have many, many more thoughts on this. But if you have any input, I would be grateful to have it. I'm not here to lead some movement, or the only reason I'm here is because I care enough still to speak about it, because I know that others won't speak about it. And if that matters to you, then maybe it's time we all stop pretending that somehow the problem is going to get better. I don't believe it is.